And this is why it would be perfect for a man to have a 15-year gap with a woman, because you would have a 40-year-old man and a 25-year-old woman, which would mean that she is still in her prime, she wants to have kids right now, and a man is 40, he's currently in his prime, and he wants to have kids right now. Hello guys, and welcome back to another episode. In this episode we're going to be talking about how men and women should have a 15-year age gap. So something that I saw very recently was, who's the guy? The Vacci guy. I've got his name written down actually. Gianluca Vacci. I think that's how you say his name. He's kind of like an Italian playboy. He's in his 50s and he's kind of like the Italian Dan Bilzerian. That's what people say. Now, the headline was about how, at 53, he's having his first child, which I actually think, is a pretty good idea. But most people, the reason it made a headline is most people were kicking off saying that he was too old. His girlfriend's like 25 and stunning. She's like a Venezuelan model. And they're having a baby. And a lot of people were kicking off. However, from my point of view, I thought personally that it's a better idea. I think it's a better strategy. And I've said this for a long, long time. For multiple reasons. Let's start with male and female timelines, okay? So, men kind of grow up around about 16 to 18 with low social value. Nobody wants them. Other men don't really respect them, especially older men. And on top of that, women, they aren't too attracted. Women that are 18 are even looking at older guys. And it's very, very hard. And this kind of continues all the way up to like 24, 25. And then, around about that age, a man starts to pick up value a lot more. It's not as bad as things used to be. But it's still not fantastic. You're still looking at the guys that are like in their mid-30s, early 40s and thinking, God damn, you're a mentor to me. You're a father figure. I know for a fact when I was like 22, 23, there'd be certain guys that I was around where I was like, God, if I can get to his position in life just as a starter base, I'd be happy. And, I think that's what happens a lot with men, where men have this slow, gradual rise, and it's very much a struggle, and it takes till around about, I think 28. I think when you reach 28, things really start to get better. 27, 28. If you can, I've always said to you guys, I made that video before, that 28 is the most dangerous age for a man, because marriage, kids, settling down, mortgage, all these things kind of become a thing around about that age or within a 5-6 year window. And I think if you can get past all of that, then you become, a higher level of social value to the majority of women around you who have probably declined in social value somewhat at that point. And I definitely think that any guys who can cross that boundary and go into their 30s as a single man can start to really enjoy high social value. Not necessarily as a single man, but you experience it more because you're probably out more and you can feel that attention and you could take advantage of it too. So any guys that are kind of going into their 30s in that scenario and they've built up their value, suddenly the tables turn, they're on top, they have all the social value, they can attract women. Women, on the other hand, high social value, pretty much 16, 18 years old, it skyrockets, it comes down just as quick. So by the time a woman gets to, let's say, 28, 30, that social value is beginning to tail off. Doesn't always happen, there's beautiful women in their 30s out there. But on the majority, I'd say that the majority of women by about 28 are seeing their best days behind them. Now, what does this say for male and female timelines in terms of a relationship? So let's say a man who's 25 years old and a woman who's 25 years old, he might feel lucky to be with this woman because she's in the middle of her prime, so to speak, maybe more towards the tail end of the years. Let's say a man who is 24 years old and a woman who's 22. Okay, let's make a realistic scenario here. This woman is 22. She's in her ultimate prime. She looks fantastic. She can get any guy she wants, right, within reason. This guy is 24 years old, 25 years old. He has moderately low social value. His life isn't even started yet. You know, he doesn't even know what he wants to do with his life yet, and he's managed to get this woman through personality or whatever it might be, right? Looks or whatever, humor, whatnot. He feels lucky. He feels as though he's lucky in that scenario, and quite frankly, looking at the current situation, yeah, he probably is. So, as we fast forward and the woman comes into her decline period and the man comes into his male advantage period in his 30s, like I said, and then on to his 50s, those tables are going to turn. So now that man's looking at the scenario and thinking, maybe now she's lucky to be with me. You know, maybe now I'm looking at other women. Maybe now this wasn't what it was quite promised when we first got together. So he starts looking at the younger women, you know, because now he's in his prime and these younger women are in their primes. And it's like, maybe this is going to work better. Maybe this is going to work better because both of us are currently at the highest social value we're going to have. Maybe we should partner up now because it's going to work in a better scenario. Now, the other side of this coin, the second part to this, is that a lot of women will want a child by around about 25 to 30 years old. You know, once they get to that sort of age, they start thinking, you know, 30s for a lot of women is too late. They panic at that point. But 21 to 25, a lot of women kind of want to have kids around that period. Now, a lot of men, they will have kids around about that period, but they're kind of pressured into it. A lot of men are more inclined to think, okay, from 30 to 40, I'll consider it. Maybe when I'm 40 years old, I'll consider it. You know, it's not really, I would say, at the forefront of a lot of men's minds to kind of, I mean, put it this way. You hear a lot of women say, oh, I can't wait to be a mother. A lot of men will say, I can't wait to be a father, but that probably won't happen until they're in their 30s. Or, you know, I don't see a lot of guys being 22 years old begging women to get pregnant. You know, it usually happens by accident. Whereas there's a lot of women asking their boyfriend, husband, whatever it might be, can we have a baby? Can we start trying for a baby? And I think a lot of men, due to social pressures, are driven into having a child early, you know, getting married, having a child, going down that route. Whereas in reality, I think a lot of men would actually want to have a child later in life. I think it's more beneficial. I'm going to do a video soon on the benefits of being an older father. I think it's way better. I think logically, a lot of guys, if they sat down and made a calculated decision, would rather put all their effort into their own life first and then perhaps go for kids when they're closer to 40, mid-30s, early 40s, whatever it might be, right? Gianluca Vacchi, 52, 53 years old. You know, that something like that works great for him. And this is why it would be perfect for a man to have a 15-year gap with a woman, because you would have a 40-year-old man and a 25-year-old woman, which would mean that she is still in her prime. She wants to have kids right now. And a man is 40, he's currently in his prime, and he wants to have kids right now. And that kind of relationship works perfectly. Here's where, for you guys as self-improvement people, it becomes a little bit weird. And disclaimer, I'm probably, out of everybody in the world, I'm probably the one person who's most against paedophilia, okay? I know it's a weird disclaimer, but it will make sense. I hate it. I can't say what I'd like to do to those people, because YouTube will probably ban me. But I'm bang against it, just know that, okay? But when you think about it, okay, a man, when he's growing up, he's in his teens, he's in his 20s, etc. If we're going to fast forward and with hindsight, we're going to know, okay, that a man is going to be 40 years old, probably date a 25-year-old, 15-year gap or so, and that scenario is going to work perfectly. You know, you've got to think that a man who is 18... the future sounds super weird, guys, but like I said, disclaimer, because it is the reality, it's the truth of it. But a guy who's 18, the woman he's going to end up probably being with if he gets high social value is only going to be like 3 years old at the time. Okay? Now, I know that sounds crazy. What I'm not saying here is to go and find a 3-year-old and be like, right, let's groom you up to that fucking... Do you know what I mean, right? But what I'm saying is, because it's illegal, and hopefully you don't want to do that anyway... focus on yourself. Like, it gives you an excuse. Do you know what I mean? The woman that you're probably logically gonna be with if you become a high value man is a child. So it's like you can't even go down that route right now anyway. And all the women your age don't currently want you. All the hot women in your current era, you're not socially valuable enough to get these women. I hope this is making sense and not coming across as weird, but it is logical. It makes sense, right? Like, what a 25-year-old girl and a 40-year-old man, like that's the numbers, it adds up, right? So if that's the scenario, and obviously it's illegal and you wouldn't want to do that anyway, I'd hope, if you do, please go to a doctor and get, is it castrated or get medically injected so that your sex drive dies down. I think it's the only way to do it if you're a paedophile, right? But you've got to think to yourself, well, I can't get the women that are my age right now. There's no point chasing them. The woman I'm probably going to end up being with is off limits. I might as well just focus on myself. It just makes logical sense for the male advantage. It's just kind of, if older men end up being with younger women, it's like, why not ignore women in your youth? Work on yourself relentlessly so that when you do get into like, I don't know, you get to like 32, 35, something like that, the 18, 19, 20, 21, 22-year-old women that are now in their prime, you're in the perfect position to get, to be attractive to them. And the women that were your age who are also 35, well, they don't look like they used to. Your social value is like double, if not triple what theirs is. And it's your time now, and you don't want those women that were your age, you want the younger ones. It makes perfect sense, right? So a man's life is pretty much set up perfectly. It's like, you can't get the women you currently want, so why not just work on yourself? But then when you get to that promised land where you are in a perfect position to get the women that are your age, you no longer want them. You want the younger girls that are now the young, hotter girls that are like in their 20s, early 20s, and that sort of age range. So it's like those two merge together perfectly. Like a man has low social value at the start. He has to work on himself. Once he does, he's able to get the prize, which is these girls in their early 20s. Everything just makes perfect sense. So that's why a 15-year age gap is perfect. And like I said, guys, I hope that doesn't come across as weird. It is the logical numbers. If you look at it, whichever way you look at it, the numbers check out. Like if a 40-year-old man and a 25-year-old woman get together and everyone thinks, okay, that's fine, high social value, at some point you have to naturally draw the conclusion that when he was 18, she was 3. So that's what I'm saying. When you're young, you might as well just work on yourself, because the hot women of the next generation that you're probably going to end up being with are completely off limits anyway. And the girls your age don't want you anyway. So it's like, as a man early on, you cannot get any of these girls. So you might as well, like I said, go and work on yourself. And then when you're in that position and time takes control, when these girls are like 21 and you're 36 years old, boom, it's cleanup time. And that's why it makes sense to have a 15-year age gap between men and women.